Hey everyone, my name is Zach Whittle and I'm here today for Shred Academy, bringing the first video for the question and answer series. I'm really looking forward to this as we've gotten a lot of really good questions so far, and if you have any questions over guitar techniques, theory, composition, anything really, feel free to submit them to the link that's provided on the screen. Let's get started. Applying sweep picking and arpeggios while improvising is actually one of the more difficult things to do. And the reason for this is it takes a much higher level of concentration to make things happen correctly, to make sure that you're applying the right arpeggio at the right time and applying the right inversions and everything like that. Now, there are a lot of ways you can go about doing this, but the best success I've seen for my students is when they simply start their phrases with the arpeggio. And the reason for this is they can get it right away, and they don't have to worry about playing some phrase and then applying the arpeggio, which a lot of times what ends up happening is they end up getting distracted by what phrase they were playing before it. Now, this is more about training your mind to think correctly rather than how you would want to do this all the time. Because obviously if you start your phrases the exact same way all the time, no one's going to want to listen to it because it's going to be very boring. However, like I said, this is a great way to get started. So for our first example, let's take a look at a B minor chord that's being played, and we'll use a B minor sweep for the first half, and then we'll fill it in with notes from the B minor scale for the second half. Check this out. Notice that this is divided up evenly. The first half is using the sweep picking pattern, while the second half is notes from the scale. The reason this is beneficial is, again, it allows you to focus in immediately and make sure that you actually apply it. Again, it's about training your mind to think properly. I want to give another example using more elaborate arpeggios. I'm going to use an E minor add 9 arpeggio and then a D major add 9 arpeggio. And then again, the first half of each chord will be the sweep. The second half is going to be the scale. And what this does, again, is allows you to really focus in on making sure you apply it and apply it directly. And we'll talk more about other ways of elaborating this in a second, but check this out. Again, this is the best way I've seen for people to start getting into application of arpeggios and sweep picking while improvising. Now, once you've gotten comfortable with that, there are lots of ways you can elaborate from that. So, for example, you could start ending your phrases with arpeggios. Another way is you could simply use different inversions. So maybe for the first part of your improvising, you're focusing on second inversion sweeps, while the next part you're going to be focusing on root position or first inversion. There are all different types of ways you can go about this, but the main thing you need to keep in mind is you need to do so gradually. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed, and don't let yourself stress out about not being able to do it all at once. Just taking it in a simple, step-by-step approach will allow you to be way better at it and in a much shorter period of time. There are actually numerous reasons why you would choose one time signature over another and what the differences are. However, we don't have time to get into all of them, so we're going to focus on a main few points. Point one would be time signatures are used to help create organization, whether that's visually on a piece of sheet music or to organize rhythmic ideas, melodic ideas, your chord transitions, themes, all kinds of things like that. Again, it's about organization and about showing what is going on. So for example, if we're going from 4/4 to 7/8, we wouldn't call that 7/8 7/4 because it's going to be a shorter, more cut off feel from what we were coming from. Another example of why certain time signatures would be used is if we're going from a 4/4 to 7/8, it might even make more sense to call it an 8/8 to 7/8 for counting purposes. It would be easier to keep track of counting 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 then counting 1 2 3 4 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2. You see, the differences aren't, it's not a huge difference. However, it's much more effective to count the same bottom value. So let's take a look at this example to show 8/8 going to 7/8. Now, like I said, the time signatures can also group ideas. So while you might have more than one chord transition per time signature, it still groups the overall idea. So we're going to take the same time signatures, 8/8 and 7/8, but what we're going to do is on that 7/8, we're going to play a group of 4 notes and then a group of 3 notes, each with a different chord. However, that whole idea is transitioning back to the main chord focus. So take a look at this example. Generally speaking, there aren't a ton of rules in terms of how you choose what time signature is best, whether it be 7/8 or 7/4. However, there are better options. So what you want to do is you need to always make sure you are thinking about the feel and the idea that you want to portray. What would be best for you to organize your theme or your ideas? Now, it's not like something will be wrong necessarily if you list it as 7/4 when in reality it should be better as 7/8. It's not wrong, but it's going to be much easier to follow, much easier to portray your ideas, much easier to explain things to other musicians if you're much more clear and specific with what feel you're looking for. So the best way to go about this is always just to have a clear mind over where you're going, where you're coming from, and what makes things easiest. The short answer to your question is simply yes. It's much easier to break things down into smaller sections of music. You can focus in more on the details such as accents. Now, however, that's not the best way to do things all the time. Accents can be great, but one of the best ways is to lock in with physical and visual elements. And the reason for this is it allows you to feel what you're playing more and focus on that, and it also allows you to see what you're locking in with. Accents tend to lean much more towards audible differences, and you lock in with only what you're hearing. So as an example of this, let's say we were playing something a little stranger. Let's say we were playing septuplets playing through the C major scale. Now what a septuplet is, for those of you who don't know, is it's simply 7 notes per beat. And that's pretty awkward to count, especially when playing faster. So the easiest way to lock in with this would be to simply play 7 notes per string and lock in with the first note that you play on each string. Now we're going to ascend and descend the C major scale, like I mentioned, and we're going to lock in with the lowest note. So as we ascend, we're going to lock in with, and then as we descend, we're going to lock in with these. So take a look at this. Again, this is not always the best way. Sometimes you'd want to use accents, and sometimes you'd want to use physical, visual elements. There are actually lots of ways you can lock in with things. However, visual and physical tend to be the easiest ones to get into. They allow you to really focus in on what matters and allow you to do so more easily than, say, accents would. Because with accents, you actually have to focus on picking a note harder. Now, that's great for certain types of phrases, and that's great for a lot of different situations. Like I said, this is one of the best ways to get started with this and understand how to keep track of things rhythmically better. Thanks everyone for taking the time to watch this video today, and a special thanks to those who have submitted their questions so far. If you do have any questions, again, over anything music related, feel free to submit them at the link that's provided. Thanks again, and I'll see you next month.